Hi there, persistence runners. Today, I just, as a sort of a recreational runner who is past my mid 40s and heading towards the 50s, I just wanted to speak about the importance of planning recovery and how to structure your training a little bit so that you're not always just pounding it out and hammering your body. Um, this year I will, well, actually next year, but sort of the my running calendar year runs from June to June, as does a lot of people in South Africa. Um, I will be hopefully lining up wearing a yellow number at Comrades, having completed 9 of them and going for my 10th. And have been sort of in the throes of thinking about preparation for that race. And not that it's a race for me, it's just a run. It's currently the end of September, and it's time for most of us who are heading towards Comrades to think about qualifying, especially if you are a little bit on the sort of the veteran end of the running spectrum. Um, the reason for that is that Comrades is a selfish mistress, and if you split your focus at all between any other event and Comrades in the lead up to Comrades, you will suffer in your Comrades preparation. It's well known that, for example, splitting your focus between Two Oceans and Comrades is always going to pay negatively for Comrades. And the same goes if you choose to run a qualifier at anything like your potential in the lead up to Comrades. Now, in terms of what that means in terms of the calendar, in my opinion, that would refer to any marathon. Sort of once you're heading towards the middle to the end of February, if you are sort of targeting a marathon and really going to try and run it at your potential, sort of maybe be trying to hit PBs or whatever to get a good batching for Comrades, it's going to pay you negatively in your training lead up. And certainly once you hit the sort of the middle of March and anything after that, it may even still be in your legs on Comrades Day. So you really, really want to try and get that qualifier out of the way in the previous year's marathon season. So in the spring and early summer marathon season, yes, if you do have to run a marathon in South Africa, sort of in October, November, you might get a little bit unlucky with the hot weather, but I think we're all pretty accustomed to the heat and can adapt to that. So that certainly is going to be my strategy. This year I have been fortunate in that my main sport is actually canoeing, river marathon canoeing, and which I'm going to speak about a little bit later. But with the change in the calendar this year and cancellation of races thanks to foot and mouth disease, I have been able to focus on my running, which is unusual for this time of year. And instead of having to split focus between two disciplines, I've been able to spend the last sort of few weeks after a post-Comrades break getting ready and preparing for it's not going to be a sort of a PB attempt or anything like that, but just to get a qualifier done and get a decent batching for next year in June. The other thing, well, which then allows you to sort of after the marathon have a break, recover, and then kind of go again, but with quite a firm base in your legs, which is always a good idea. Um, with regard to the way to plan your training and structure your recovery, I had a break after Comrades and took it easy, but still kept up doing exercise, for a little while. I did a bit of paddling and got back going with that before the calendar change that I referred to earlier, and then once that happened, decided to shift the focus. But once I'd started running again and got going again, I have been going for a few weeks, and it's getting relatively close. I've got a few weeks to go before my qualifier, and I'm in it's actually not that high volume training because I just don't have that much time available at the moment. But it will be the highest volume few weeks. So I've been out and trying to get some high intensity workouts done, and yesterday for the last few weeks I've been doing a block of hill training, so really focusing on getting the altitude gain up and down, even on my long runs, been trying to go a little bit up and down. The qualifier that I'm aiming at does have quite a bit. It's got about 800 meters of altitude gain and loss in a 42, so but it's just timed well, so that's the reason that I'm going to go for it. So I need to be going up and down in those long runs, and I've been, as I say, with my interval running, I've been doing a couple of hill sessions consecutively. And then yesterday I went back to doing some flatter and faster intervals, getting the leg speed up and trying to travel across the ground a bit faster. And it just struck me how I just can't move my legs the same way that I used to do when I was younger. They just don't seem to go as fast, as easily as they used to. And not only that, I really suffered through that session. I spent, if you are familiar with zones of heart rate training, in a session that was just over an hour, I spent 28 minutes with my heart rate up in zone 4, running at speeds that sort of 10 or 12 years ago I would have been relatively comfortable running at sort of in the top half of my zone 3. And then this morning, the day after, I can feel, which I did, I have been doing this for a little while, so I have been aware of it for a little while, but it just triggered me to talk about it. I'm really stiff and a little bit sore this morning as a result of having run so hard yesterday. So when you are training like that, it is really important to structure your week properly and schedule your training so that you it is a good idea to do quality sessions like that, but you've got to structure your week so that you can allow recovery and allow it to benefit you. And if you are a little bit stiff or a little bit sore, that's where your rest day has got to be. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that doing that to your, if you're running in a group or you run at a club and you're trying to keep up with your mates and all that, you've got to be very careful to manage your intensity. If you are a little bit older, you will take longer to recover than you would have when you were younger, or a younger training partner or whatever. So you've got to be very disciplined and very careful, because it is a fast road to injury. If you increase your load too much, run the next day or whatever, often it'll often be about 2-3 weeks later, sometimes maybe a bit longer, where it might burn you and either cause something like you getting sick or getting injured. So yeah, you've just got to really be careful as you get older. You've got to manage your intensity. I now have learned the hard way to only do one hard or high intensity session a week. When you're younger, you might have been able to do a little bit more than that, but certainly as you get older, it really isn't a good idea. So whatever high heart rate or high effort training that you're doing, you've got to try and fit it into one session a week, and then most of the rest of the time you've really got to bank on just getting mileage. And mileage is by far a year, especially as an ultra, if you're focusing on ultras and marathons and things like that. Mileage really is king. For a Comrades runner, if you're 10, 11 and just getting into sub 12 hour runners, mileage is really the most important thing. Doing intervals and doing high intensity sessions, if you're trying to do a bull run or go faster, yes, it is important to do that work. But for the majority of runners, it's really, mileage is the most important thing. And you've got to structure your training and your workouts around being, it's not training that makes you fitter, it's the rest in between training that makes you fitter. So if I can just use an example, in the running group that my wife and I frequently train with, we've got a couple of runners in there who are in the habit of, they do a lot of runs that are sort of between 5 and 8 kilometers, between sort of 30 minutes and 45 minutes. and they go out and they might be going out sort of 5 or 6 times a week and doing relatively short runs like that, when you can go out for an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes, get the same quantity of mileage in, but have an extra rest day, and get sort of a better quality session that's going to benefit your body more, because that you're training to be out there for a long time when you're a marathon or ultra marathon runner. So if you're just sort of chugging along at that low level, zone 2 intensity, it's a far better choice to run a little bit longer, have an extra rest day, and structure your training that way. It's going to lead to better adaptation by your body, and give you more recovery time. So those are just some little hints and tricks that I have picked up along the way. As I mentioned earlier, my primary sport is actually river marathon paddling, where I'm actually far more competitive than I have ever been as a runner. I'm a relatively big guy. I'm 6'5" in height, which is 1.95 meters. My very lean body weight is sort of around about 90 kilograms, so that really doesn't suit an ultra runner. And to be honest with you, ultra running is really, really hard work for me. And yeah, it's just something that I do because I love it and have always wanted to get my green number. But on the paddling side of things, I have been relatively competitive, depending on how much time and effort I have been able to expend in training. And that really is where I have learnt the lesson of getting on a little bit in years now, and you can see the hairline is definitely not where it used to be, and having to train smarter and not train so hard anymore. But then when it is time to do the high intensity sessions and get the quality work, and what to do and how to do it. So yeah, really scheduling rest is really the most important thing, making sure you get the time for recovery, and whatever quality work you do get in, you've got to schedule that with your rest. Try and get mileage is the most important thing, but you've really got to structure that mileage so that you get enough rest in between the mileage. And if that means that you sort of, at the moment, I've been training with a marathon in mind, so the volume is not that high in relation to what it might be sort of towards March and April of a Comrades lead up. So I really would recommend trying as far as possible. You can do the mileage that you need to do training on only 4 or 5 days a week in a marathon lead up, which would leave you either 2 or 3 rest days, and then once you're getting towards Comrades, it really is only necessary to run 5 days a week for most of us in most of Comrades lead up. Pushing it to 6 days a week would only be necessary on a couple of weeks of the year, sort of when you're in that really heavy peak mileage of March and April. And you really junk miles, so in my opinion, what are junk miles? It's when you go out and you do those pointless, sort of, if you're running anything less than 8 kilometers when you're preparing for a relatively significant event and you're running at low intensity, that really is what I think are junk miles. Rather go out and run for an hour or an hour and 10 or an hour and 15 minutes. If you do 2 runs like that, that's going to be worth 3 runs where you're doing those shorter runs. Take the extra rest day. Schedule your rest. It's really important. Good luck. It's a good idea to have a think about your schedule and get ready and get prepared. Get some sort of basic fitness under your feet, and also doing some strength work, getting really strong at standing up straight and maintaining your form, and getting ready for Comrades in June of 2025.